everyone, my name is REDRUP. You're listening to the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Joe Edwards, who's the frontman of the recently reformed UK metalcore outfit Shields. We discuss when and why the band decided to reunite, what they've all been up to since they broke up, looking back at the band's career and outlook when they were initially together, their new single Bury Me, working in the circus, future plans, and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number one, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number two, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number three, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Joe Edwards of Shields. How's it going, man?
Going good, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on and talking about, this return of Shields, which is, the big news, back after half a decade, which is crazy, right?
I know, Jesus fucking Christ. It has been half a decade. I haven't thought about it like that, but you've just made it sound a lot longer. Yeah, a lot happened in that time. But absolutely, man, it's really good just to be back, and Shields is a huge part of my life again. So it's just really exciting to talk about it.
Yeah, it's great for you guys to be back as well. Like I was saying before we started, you guys were quite a big presence in that kind of growing UK metal scene back a few years ago. And obviously you guys went away understandably under quite tragic circumstances, which, we can briefly touch on later just because I think, context is kind of important.
Yeah, I can talk about that.
But, before we get to that, let's just kind of look at a brief history of Shields. I think you guys, was it 2012 you guys formed?
Well, I mean, officially Shields was like 2012 beginnings, I guess, yeah. But by technicality, Sam and I are really old friends. I mean, that's no technicality, but by technicality, we started a long time before that. Me and Sam and myself met when we were like 10, 11 years old when we were kids. So whilst we weren't playing music at the very start of our friendship, I don't even know if it was like a proper friendship at the start, but I think we probably started hanging out and being friends when we discovered that we were both just like into rock music and playing guitar and stuff like that. So Shields began when we were really young, but just in different forms. We're always in rock bands and playing music together. Eventually that evolved into metal and this thing we wanted to start. And we were like, we should write an EP. It was, what the fuck we're going to call each other? This band we'd have no idea. So I think Sam made the name Shields on the basis of like, I don't know. I actually have no idea. I think it just came from the idea of wanting to sound like Structures, which is pretty much our baseline instrument.
Yeah, isn't that like both of your favorite bands, pretty much?
Yeah, I do. Fucking love Structures. Yeah, that first album is like it's our Bible. When you listen to Shields, that's basically just what we're trying to do. Structures and Pocket Drive.
It's a good blueprint to go off. And did you enjoy the new EP they brought out? Like I think it was last year, maybe. Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not as acclimatized to that one because they're one of those bands where I just listened to the first album so much and the second album came out and I didn't really spend much time with it. Right. And so I didn't do that with this new EP either. But every time now and then it comes up on my radio and I look at the Spotify and think, oh, what is that? I got to remember this band, and it's Structures. It's always Structures. Yeah. So we kind of based ourselves off of those bands originally. That and like Periphery and like the Gent was like forming at the time, and the whole, the Meshuggah revival was running around in modern forms. So we were just trying to kind of catch up with that as well. And eventually by the time we got to the second EP, because we actually did an EP that no one knew about. I don't know how far back you knew Shields, but we had this one EP that had an owl on the cover, and that was
the self-titled one. Yeah,
the self-titled one. And you can find it on our Bandcamp. You can still buy it on Bandcamp and find it on YouTube, but it's not on Spotify because we kind of feel like Shields as it is now started with Guilt, which is the first EP that you can find on Spotify. And by that time, we'd started to get into the more emotional side of metal, like Being as an Ocean and Counterparts. So I think that's where we actually truly first hit what we class as Shields, this mix of like heavy and emotion, just riding around like Slender Man.
Yeah, because I think it was the Guilt EP where it's like, because you were getting some attention from that self-titled EP, but it was Guilt where people were kind of really paying attention to what Shields was and what you guys were up to at the time.
Yeah, it's I don't even know if I recognized that. I think I was just like, we're this small band. Like, I definitely think that we went through, you know how bands, when they start out and they get some kind of attention, it's like the first time you ever get attention from, the gender that you're attracted to. It's like, oh, I guess I'm really hot. And I feel like we kind of did that when we first released that little EP. We were just really excited about it. And then we got some management and cool tours. But I think after that, you're seeing the tours that we're on and the crowds that were coming to the bigger bands. I think we were just then like, okay, no, we're actually a small band. And as a result of that, I didn't really recognize that people were that excited about us in the Guilt era. I just, we weren't getting big tours, although we were always touring. I guess the point that I'm ending up in now is coming back to Shields is just really, really encouraging and actually really good for me to see that people were really recognizing and listening to us in a way that I just didn't understand back then. It's incredibly gratifying.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I guess when you're in the moment and you're in the thick of it, you don't quite always see like the going around of what you're in and what you're doing and how people are kind of responding to it. You're just kind of living in the moment, which is a good thing. But then obviously now you've got the benefit of hindsight and what that was all like for you.
I think it comes in two parts. Like a big part is exactly as you say, it's kind of living in the moment. I'm seeing in hindsight. Another part was something that was a huge detriment to us, which was this pressure that we wanted to make it our jobs. We were so dedicated to like putting all our money and our time into this project that we were then comparing ourselves to bands and friends bands who are doing better than us. And it's not healthy and it's not wise. Because of that, I think we were just always butthurt that we weren't getting those opportunities that friends bands were.
Yeah.
And we on that tour, like, why isn't that label talking to us? Like, we should be managed by that person. And it's bullshit, man. It separates you from the rest of the industry.
I think everyone's kind of guilty of that in whatever realm. Like you're always comparing yourself, unfortunately, especially with social media. That makes it even more like of a thing that you can kind of fall under, like a crux that's always there. Like always comparing how many likes someone gets on a photo and stuff like that,
It is, isn't it? Yeah, you see like, oh man, well, how come they played 5 minutes before us at this festival on the smaller stage, but they have more people in there?
Yeah.
It's like that, man. You're fighting a losing battle. You're fighting with yourself, really, because you're not then appreciating what you have. And by extension, you're not appreciating the people that are coming to see you and are paying money to see you. It's just negativity that feeds more negativity. So I guess a big part of why we're just enjoying Shields so much now is we've come back with this perspective of we really appreciate everyone who's listening to us. We really appreciate everyone who's like guided us and helped us in the industry and just friends who have like been there for us throughout it. But the fact that we're just doing this because we enjoy it now, this is so much more important. Like, I don't know what really the end goal is with Shields. I think the idea right now is that we're just going to do it as long as it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
And we'll do it as much as we feel comfortable doing it, which might mean sometimes it'll be less and sometimes it'll be more. But I guess we're in this phase right now where we're just super stoked on it and we're doing loads and we're writing and we're back with our old label. So we're talking to them lots about future things and projects and stuff. Yeah. It's just an exciting time for us where we're really happy to be doing it. There's no negativity attached to it at all.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy way of going about it, especially now because obviously some time's passed, a bit older, more responsibilities in life and stuff like that. So you've got to kind of consider it, haven't you? You've got bills to pay and like metal's not a lucrative business and music as a whole, just for the most part, isn't. So yeah,
I guess, yeah. It's funny when you get like family members and people you meet and they're like, oh, cool, so you played in front of all these people and you do all these tours and stuff like that. And it's like, you must have made a bit of money, and you're like, no, I lost everything. You tour for like, I think at the height of our touring, what do I call it? Maybe it's like a touring addiction because we just accepted everything. That's another thing we're not doing now. So we're not just saying yes to everything. We're trying to do it smarter. But I think at the height of it, we just weren't really looking after ourselves.
Yeah.
Different point entirely, but it's not healthy just to say yes to everything anyway.
Yeah. I guess the plus side of that at the time was if you're on these tours all the time, then you're gaining all these new fans because you're basically everywhere.
Yeah, it did do a lot for us. That's for sure. Like just doing this like underground scene for years really, really allowed us to build some like solid infrastructure. Yeah, people that now we come back and see, and like people that still talk to us and stuff like that. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, there's nothing wrong with performing to people that you haven't played to before, and then allowing those people to come back and see us in small venues. But I think now that we're considering our well-being and our health, and what works for us in our adult lives. Touring 6 months of the year just isn't viable. It's not feasible, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
In that way.
Well, yeah, back then you, like I said, you were kind of a prominent addition to that UK heavy scene. I mean, there were bands like Heights, Smarter Defiled, The Elijah, Demoralizer, Silent
Yes, the Elijah.
Screams, Carter City, Empire's Fade, Asriel, like all these different
Yeah.
bands, like it kind of basically like the Ghost Fest lineup.
That was a good festival, man. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
That year that we played, Jesus Christ. Yeah, man. I still listen to the Elijah and Silent Screams. Like Silent Screams are good friends of Shields. So Sam writes with Joel's new band, Spitting Teeth. Ozzy is one of our very close friends, who runs Oz Tours. And we played with Being as an Ocean in our first show back at Burn It Down Festival. So when I saw Michael there, at one point, Michael was from Being as an Ocean, the singing guitarist. He used to print our merchandise. So I remember talking to him about that and like the Elijah. But yeah, dude, that was a good era. A fun era for metalcore, I'd say. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And then you had like in Archive as well, who are now obviously modern era, and it's just crazy to see how much in just 5 years, how much the scene has kind of changed, really.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a whole different thing now, isn't it? It's like people are taking different approaches to writing. I think the production is such an important part of being in a metal band. Like, I think there's a few reasons why, but one reason is like I listen to all kinds of music, and I've gone in and out of phases of music, different kinds of music. Like, for instance, after Shields ended, I was kind of done with metal and just went the total opposite way and was into all these like kind of like indie bands and like acoustic stuff and like Kurt Weill and The War on Drugs and all these bands. They have like really like lo-fi production and stuff like that. And I think one thing about that is, well, first of all, the dynamic is quieter, so you're able to have lower quality recordings that just allow the vibe to be expressed. But of course, what they're doing is they're just kind of playing things in very natural sounding spaces, whereas metal has got so much going on, everything is just crowded all at once into the frequency spectrum. I think production makes such a huge, important difference, probably more to like heavy music than it does to lots of other kinds of music, simply because it's like, without the clarity, you lose a lot of the song, which, for a while I was like, well, you shouldn't need production to make your songs good. But then if you have a great metal song, but production sucks, what do you hear first?
It's just all the distortion, isn't it? And the muddleness. Yeah. Everything's just fighting to get to the top of the pile.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's either too much compression or not enough. And it's like, oh, this is deflating. I can't listen to this in the same ease that I could do with this amazing, astonishingly good production on this metal album. Yeah. That said, like production isn't always the be all and end all, but I definitely think without good production, it's a lost cause. A losing battle, not a lost cause.
Yeah, yeah. And then obviously we get to 2018. You guys have got like an album coming, the debut album, Life in Exile. In January, I think you were touring with Escape the Fate in like mainland Europe, and I think there were some UK dates as well.
Yeah, we did UK too.
And then your guitarist George unfortunately took his own life, and I think that kind of the weight of that, and understandably with that kind of darkness of that happening, you guys decided it was just kind of too painful to continue with Shields at that time. I guess that was obviously just a really difficult time for you guys.
It was incredibly turbulent. I mean, obviously George was dead, and that completely shook the boat. Like, we had no idea how to handle that whatsoever. We were not equipped to deal with those emotions. But then you never are. You're going to experience some level of trauma in that situation regardless. That was the biggest reason that Shields ended. But we, as I mentioned earlier, imposed so much pressure on ourselves that we weren't happy doing it. I don't think we were that happy doing Shields in the way that we should have been for it to succeed through that trauma anyway. We just were trying to make it our jobs. We were jealous of friends getting good opportunities. We weren't very satisfied with where the band was at that point. We were just about to release this album, and we just felt like we weren't getting the right tours or this and that. All this, this stuff, this pressure that isn't good for you, that you put on yourself, that played a part in the ending of Shields as well. And I think for the better that it ended, if that was our outlook. Obviously, it sucks that George died. I would not ever want that. That is not a thing that I wouldn't have liked to have happened in my life, but in any of our lives. But, that was, I guess, the biggest part of the ending of the band, and just the fact that we had all this stuff attached to it as well with wanting to make it our jobs. It all just came down to this isn't working for us anymore. But, you know, we didn't stop being friends. We're all still best friends. Obviously, Lawrence is still playing with Shields, and Sam and I have known each other for 20 years nearly now. And Alex, you know, after Shields ended, we were all at his wedding. He was at our most recent London show. Thankfully, like, any of that pressure and none of that trauma pushed us apart. But, you know, we're back and it's good. And I think we've healed from the death of George. So I guess it's a funny one talking about it, you know.
Yeah, I think I guess you've got, as well as like all those kind of other external pressures and pressures you're putting on yourself, I guess you guys just needed time to step away from all of that was connected to obviously George passing and kind of grieve not only him, but you no longer having a love for the band that you used to have.
Yeah, you know, like Sam and me started this thing when we were kids. So I think if we just carried on, then me and Sam wouldn't be the friends we are today. I'm sure we would have. I'm positive that regardless of whatever happened, we would know each other for the rest of our lives. But after Shields ended, I basically I wasn't that into metal anymore anyway. Like, to be real, I just kind of got grown fatigued of it. You know, we were listening to it all the time and we were playing with metal bands and we were playing metal, and it was just, my life is just riffs and shouting and my voice hurts and I'm sick of hearing it in the van when I'm trying to sleep. And I don't want to hear it in the background when I'm trying to sleep on this fucking sofa that's got rats in it because it's at the back of a venue that is not being kept up in, you know, fucking Belgium or somewhere like that. And you're just like, right. Fuck, it's -7 and I suck. Everything sucks. And I think it all just like played this part in me just removing myself from metal. And, you know, probably for the better. It was probably healthy for me to do that. But I basically, Shields ended and I ran away and I joined the circus. Straight up went to Newcastle with the partner I was with, and I started working in circus arts.
Quite a change.
Yeah, completely different. Like, was focused a bit more on my solo acoustic project and made a new band when I was up there that was like indie alternative kind of rock music. And I just
Honeyflux, that was the band, wasn't it?
That's the one. Yeah. I made Honeyflux. Yeah. Which was awesome. That was great fun. I still have some really fun memories I have lots of fun memories of doing stuff with Honeyflux, but I left Newcastle to come back to London, so, you know, that ended. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a different vibe to Shields, really.
Yeah. You know, I still love that kind of music. Like, I love that indie kind of like rocky guitar kind of thing, like Americana based rock. But coming back to London and then touring with Kubrick, Sam's solo project, and then being around metal and in that scene again, I felt really excited by it. I realized it was a big part of who I was. I'd grown up listening to it. Just felt right.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's all about timing, isn't it? Like, you could never have planned the way that things kind of turned out after Shields ended to go in that kind of sequence, but it did, and you seem healthier and happier for it.
Yeah, no, I think I am. I'm much better in myself than I was back then. You know, I think being and not doing Shields and moving away and just being independent for 5 years, that was, you know, the best thing I ever did. And yeah, no, it was weird, I guess. I moved up with this partner that, you know, it obviously didn't work out because I'm back in London. But while within that time of being in Newcastle, you know, me and Sam still spoke, but we didn't speak nearly as much as we had done.
Right.
Obviously, we were living in a van together 6 months of the year, so that we just weren't seeing each other as much. But coming back to London, and as the relationship was deteriorating in Newcastle, you know, me and Sam and myself just I don't want to say rekindled, because it never lost it never lost its spark. It just grew into like a whole new different thing where, I don't know, it just got better. You know, we started talking more regularly, and now even though I see him like every other day, I still call him every day. We still speak on the phone.
That's cool.
He is my literal brother. Maybe, you know, we spend Christmas with each other. It's a whole thing. We're moving in with each other. We're basically boyfriend and boyfriend, but
it's like a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that as well, the fact that our friendship it's like meta levels of friendship now. So Shields is just easier and better because we can communicate with in ways that we couldn't do when we were kids. You know, we're just like young men in their early 20s who just didn't really know what to do with their emotions. Right. So we didn't know how to express our emotions properly to each other. And now that we do, and we've experienced like really dramatic hardship over the years, it's easier just to talk to each other and then say anything we need.
That's really good. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Because of when the band ended and stuff, the album Life in Exile didn't get the traditional campaign of an album where you would tour it and stuff like that. when you look back at that album now, over 5 years old now, how do you feel about that album? Do you still listen to it? Do you still like the record that you made together?
Yeah, I think that album rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm stoked on it. There's some bangers in there. And I say that, coming away and then kind of listening to it after like 5 years when I was in Newcastle and whatnot, the band ended and it'd been a while and I'd kind of gotten over my frustrations with it. And then you put it on, you're like, oh man, I'm fucking proud of this.
Yeah.
I was like fucking slaying it. No, I mean, like, all jokes aside, like, yeah, I'm really proud of that album. I think we did a good job of it. There's some tracks that I'm more likely to skip than others, but I think there's just some fucking heaters in there that we're now playing live that we never did before. Like you said, we didn't get to do the album thing and do even like an album. We did an album show. We never played it in full. So there's like 7 or 8 tracks that never made it to the stage. On this last tour, we started playing Love Is Dead, which is one of my favorite tracks off the album. And I was always gutted that we couldn't play. And that one's like proper heater, really exciting to play. Gets the crowd jumping, gets me jumping.
Yeah. Well, I've got Black Dog on my running playlist that always hypes me up when I'm on my run.
Nice. Yeah, that one's got some energy. I like Mother. Mother's another one. Another one of my favorite ones to play live as well is absolutely Mother.
Yeah. Is that the one we've got? Is it Joel from Silent Screams? Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the best metal vocalists in the scene.
And then obviously, you said before you started you went to Newcastle to join the circus and you started Honeyflux.
Yeah.
Sam had his solo project Kubrick, and then I think Alex and Larry, they went into Our Hollow, Our Home for a little bit.
Yeah, they were in Our Hollow for a little while. And I think they stopped being in Our Hollow nearly a year ago now. Yeah.
Was that when didn't all the members bar one leave or something like that? I don't know how that all unfolded, but yeah, something like that happened.
Yeah, no, they just all decided it was best for them to not be in the band, I think. And it's nice to see Our Hollow being able to continue.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's hard to, there's a few bands that kind of go through a similar thing, right? And it's kind of, I don't know if to say strange, but it's kind of impressive, I guess, to see them kind of not only come back, but with like a brand new lineup. Because I think Amur did a similar thing, like everyone left but the vocalist, and somehow he got like a full lineup back.
Yeah, was that when Josh Travis?
Yeah, he came back as part of the new lineup.
Yeah, dude, that guy's such a fucking monster.
Yeah.
We did a show with Amur once on our final tour, and holy fuck, the guy is just so good to watch on stage. And he's just a riff monster. He's good. Insane. Yeah, I think he's probably one of Sam's biggest inspirations as a guitarist.
Yeah, just everything he touches. Like he was in Glass Cloud for a bit as well, and they like some of their riffs are just insane.
Yeah, dude, we were meant to do a tour with them, and then he joined Amur.
Oh god. Poor timing.
I know, terrible timing. That's the way it goes, isn't it though?
Yeah.
So they joined Our Hollow for a little while. I think they must have left about just like under a year ago, because Shields came back after we all performed at Burn It Down Festival, but in different bands. So Alex and Larry in Our Hollow and Sam and myself in Kubrick. And basically the festival organizer Matt saw us all there together and was like, yo, do you want to come down and low-key come back for one performance, and we'll make it work. And after that we just got talking about doing Shields and what that meant, and we decided to come back to this one performance and do a one-off, thinking that we'd never anticipated to come back. Not even like before we got that offer, we didn't think we'd ever be doing Shields again. So we thought, well, if we're going to come back, we might as well at least release some music with it or something like that. And all of a sudden a song just materialized in front of us. It was one of those ones that literally just kind of like falls out of you when you're writing. The easiest ones to write. It's like it's already there and you just kind of like pluck it out of the ether. Like Sam just wrote the basis for it really fast, and I was like, okay, I can hear what the lyrics need and how it's going to sound and the kind of way you're going to scream it. And then I just put pen to paper and the lyrics came out really, really quickly. And all of a sudden we had Bury Me, and we came back with that just before Burn It Down. Quite
a statement to come back on as well. Like, I guess when you were writing that song and you knew you were going to put out a new song, and it was going to be your first song in 5 years and marking this reunion of sorts, of like an official comeback. Was there any pressure on you, like what you want to deliver in this first song that people hear from Shields in 2023?
Nah, I mean, we were just like, we wanted to sound like Shields, but now, there was no like, there was nothing. It didn't feel like a follow up to anything. It was just like, we're just writing Shields again. I think the working title the working title for the song was It's Fucking Shields. And that was it. Like the song has nothing to do with like, I don't know, nothing to do with our past or anything like that. It was just a song about like, someone who's really troubled in their sleep. it came. Like I got I in working in circus, I've started to kind of write my own circus theatre show. So I work in like the contemporary circus sector, which is what my full-time job is in. And I've started to write this show about dreams, which is something I've always been fascinated in. And there's other songs in the album that are about dreams. But there was this phrase during my research that I found in a book that was just said nocturnal pollution. And I was like, that's cool. That sounds pretty badass.
Sounds like a metal band name.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, how can I use that in something? And then that just kind of came back to me when I was writing the lyrics for Bury Me. And it was just kind of like formed around the phrase nocturnal pollution, referring to, disrupted sleep. So yeah, I guess it had nothing to do with like anything that came prior or anything we wanted to do after. It was just like, cool, writing Shields again. Just kind of fell out of us like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe not lyrically. It's about kind of your past or your return, but because you've been away for so long, you still wanted to make some kind of statement that, we are back and, we're not fucking around.
I guess. I think it never really occurred to us. We were just really, really excited about writing again.
Yeah.
But it's also encouraging to hear that it was a statement or whatever it was. I don't know. It's encouraging to hear that it's encouraging to see the reception it's got, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said, away from the bands and stuff, you work with the circus and like theatre and like composition of music. And I think as well, like, don't you have like a bachelor's in music as well, which is not the standard for like a metalcore vocalist, I guess. Like not many metalcore vocalists are classically trained in music. Yeah,
well, both Sam and myself started out on violin, same violin teacher. But so we started off like, in kind of like more classical based music, reading music and stuff like that. But then, well, it was pretty funny. I didn't like school that much. And I don't think Sam liked school that much. And one day he came to me when we were like 15. And he was like, Joe, there's this magical place we can go to, and we don't have to do grades, or we don't have to do maths or science. We can just do music. And I was like, what is this mystical
the dream
you speak of? Yeah. And he was like, it's this place in London, and we can go and study there instead of doing A levels. And so I worked really fucking hard to get all C's so I can get into music school. And there we did a diploma in music. I then went on to do and get my higher diploma at the same place. It's called the ICMP, the Institute of Contemporary Music. And it's in Kilburn in London. And I then did a year at Westminster University. I studied guitar. Guitar was my instrument when I was there. And then I went back to the ICMP to get a bachelor's in music of playing guitar. It kind of like the first 2 years revolved around being a guitarist and playing jazz and learning multiple kinds of styles and really getting hot on your theory. And then I was more interested in pursuing composition and production for the final year. So that's more what my focus was on.
Right.
And graduated from that. And with like a bunch of qualifications in playing guitar. And I was a metal vocalist. So it's just like, it was funny because when everyone ever saw me playing guitar, they were like, what? We didn't know you could do that. And you're like, well, when Shields first started as like a metalcore thing, when we were trying to be like Enter Shikari, 14 years old, we were called One for the Homies, something ridiculous like that. I wasn't even the vocalist. I was the guitarist and singer, and Sam was the screamer and like synth player. And I have no idea when it switched around, but apparently it did at some point, and it just stuck. It froze in that way. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, because like say, like it's not really the common thing that modern metalcore artists are classically trained on music. Like there's do you know what the album Roadrunner United was?
Yeah.
There was like a DVD on it, and I can't remember who it is, but it's Rob Flynn from Machine Head and someone else, and Rob's just like saying, I want to do da 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 da. Whoever's done the drums just knew like, okay, so you want to do like just read it out as like music composition, like what he wants. And it's just like so crazy how those like kind of two minds go together, and how people portray what they want to do with the music. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think when you're not like traditionally studied, or like we haven't gone to music school to study, like when someone's like, oh, we need you to play blah 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 blah, you just over the time, if you continue doing music and playing with people, you develop your own way of talking about it. Like it's funny because when Sam's talking about frets and whatnot, it would be like, oh, you go to 5 6 4 2. But in my head, I'm thinking 5 6 4 2 in the Nashville chord system. So I'm thinking like chord 5 of the scale we're in, for etc. etc.
Yeah. Or like with guitar, like I would read it as like a tab, whereas someone else might say, oh, so you're playing an E or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's really funny. in that kind of like when working together, and he's like, yeah, that, and I'm just like, huh? Oh yeah, okay, I get you now.
Yeah. What do you think, working within composition and, there's pieces of music you're writing for, like, the circus and the theatre and stuff, does that kind of help you flex and like a different side of your creative muscle that you really like to itch?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Like with metal, it's a different beast entirely. Like when you're doing stuff for circus and theatre, you're not working with the goal that you fix yourself as, you're working with the goal that the person creating the show is set out for you. So like you're trying to understand the emotion. You're trying to bind the audience with the emotional content on the stage. And you have to materialize that out of nowhere. I guess it's a weird thing where with writing for yourself, you just have to write what feels good and what sounds good. But when you're writing for theatre and circus, you have to write what is needed for that moment. I think it's kind of like writing for film in a way, but it's a different kind of model, different template for it.
So how does that kind of work? Do you get kind of like a brief of what is going to be on the stage, or do you get like I don't know, how does it work?
Sometimes I just like, we want it to be like this, we've got the references here, but other times they're just like, can you come down and hang out in rehearsal and play around with some ideas and then just see where it goes from there? And usually, depending on what it is, that's better for the stage because you're creating it whilst they're developing stuff for the moment. You're there in the room with them and you're actually feeling what it feels like to be a part of what it is they're trying to convey. And then so all you have to do is just interpret that with sound and make sure that they're happy. And sometimes you can kind of get some way into it and you've not quite met the criteria that they want, and then you have to go back and tear it up and start all over again. And it's a huge process, but it's really stimulating. And that's what I enjoy about it, is it's lots of moving parts and lots to think about. And sometimes you're responding to like a movement, or sometimes you're just responding to what they think the emotion is meant to be. So diverse, and it's great. It's amazing. It's an amazing industry to be a part of because I get to meet so many people.
Yeah.
And then you stay in it long enough, and then you see people come around again that you've not seen in years. And it's a brilliant industry that I've been able to enter into, that I found very encouraging to be a part of. Like, I think one thing I found, now I remember it correctly, was I came from touring, and there was a lot of like big male personalities on the road. And that obviously isn't in every single situation, but they're just like, I think a lot of people, maybe not just us, were feeling kind of competitive about being bands back then. I feel like there's a lot more of a community now than there was before, probably because metal is so much more of a bigger thing in the world.
Yeah.
I think metal is like, has such a huge, and heavy music has had such a resurgence that people just seem to be responding to that within the scene with like love and encouragement and community. But before, whilst there was community, my experience in a big way was there was a lot more competitive personalities on tours. And so I went to circus and I started training circus, and people were just so encouraging, and they were like really giving, and you're part of like this huge friendship group where you go to each other's houses and you go to parties and you train circus when you were fucked up with each other, and like teach each other tricks and play circus games in fields. And it was this awesome thing. And I see that, still working in circus now, like the connections people have are different than the ones in music because it's a different art form entirely. But I was able to go to this place that was not only different, which is something I needed, but it was also very encouraging, which is also something I needed. It was like really character building.
Yeah.
And then I've come back to metal feeling like a better person and like more confident in myself. But metal's changed and people are really encouraging, and there is community, and it's great.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
It's great, and I'm so happy that metal looks like that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I keep calling it metal. I mean, just like alternative and heavy music. I don't know if my experience is just my experience though. Like, I can't talk for everyone. Me feeling like that 5-7 years ago in music is my exclusive experience, and I know that lots of people have not had that. So that also could have been a huge reflection of my self-confidence, that I felt like people were not friendly with me or not in the way that I wanted them to be.
Returning to metal, and you had that you guys met up at Burn It Down 2022, like in your respective other projects, had that conversation. Then Matt obviously offered you guys to do what was going to be a one-off show, I guess.
Yeah.
One-off reunion. obviously it's kind of like a full circle moment then that you met at Burn It Down and then you returned at Burn It Down. But at what point between that conversation and Burn It Down 2023 did it reach the point where it's like, you know what, let's do something more. Let's maybe grow on this.
I think it's when we started writing, actually. I think it's when the writing started and we were like, this is exciting. This feels really good. Shall we just maybe consider it on a longer term basis? So we decided that we were just going to be like completely DIY, just do maybe like one tour a year and just keep it super chill and just do it as like a hobby. But then I guess we just got really excited about it and more stuff started happening. We started thinking about other cool things. And, once we started talking to people on the download that we were doing Shields again, like friends who are also playing music, I guess doors just kind of opened. And we never officially had a conversation. It was like, shall we do this on a more longer term basis in a more serious way? It just kind of turned quite naturally and quite happily into that. Especially when our old label Long Branch Records approached us and we had a conversation about Shields being part of the label again, which is great because it means we have more stability when we have ideas for releases and stuff like that, whatever that means in the future.
So what was that? Did they approach you then, or did you kind of just say to them, "Hey, we're back"? And I don't know on the business side of thing. I don't know what kind of contract you did when you first signed with them and put out that first record a few years ago.
Oh well, the contract stuff is all just like a whole load of legal conversation and stuff like that. We had a big contract conversation with Long Branch and back and forth, which ended up in being convinced to rejoin the label. So they approached us and we decided to continue making music under Long Branch Records. Yeah, me and Sam were on holiday in Amsterdam, couples holiday.
As you do, yeah.
yeah. And so we had a meeting booked whilst we were just like in Amsterdam, like with the label manager Manuel. And so came back to be with Long Branch, and I guess from there on it felt more serious. And we started kind of thinking the kind of tours we can plan for 24 and the ways we can release music. And, the way we can kind of not milk Life is Exile because it's a 5-year-old album, but just celebrate it in a way that we couldn't before. So we've been talking to Long Branch Records about all of those kind of things. So it's really exciting. Just exciting to be doing band stuff again like that, Before it was just going to be this DIY thing that we just occasionally did. And now it's lots more fun.
It's not like a smooth transition back then that you could just step back into working with that label again. You didn't have to kind of, I don't know, shop around and sell yourselves or anything like that.
No, we didn't want a label initially. We weren't planning on it at all. We thought it might attach too much stuff and things to a project we were just trying to keep very low key and DIY and just have fun with. But as it turns out, that is, it works in everyone's interest just to kind of have this great little bit of industry backing. And they're lovely there. They do us good.
And what were those first shows back like, especially with you being the vocalist and, a little older, things when you get older don't work the way they used to. Like, were you kind of getting, I don't know, having to focus more on your breath control and endurance? Like, oh, I've not done this in a little while. I need to kind of pace myself a little bit.
No, it was actually the opposite for me because I was, I was unhealthy when I was in Shields before, but I wasn't like overweight or anything, but I loved drinking. I loved smoking. I loved doing drugs and I loved staying up late. And,
all the things that are great for your voice.
Exactly. That, it's exactly what Melissa Cross recommended. But I didn't do that. Whilst I didn't do that on tour, I just enjoyed doing that in my like social life as a young man. And I went up to Newcastle and I joined the circus and I still loved drinking and getting fucked up and all that kind of stuff like that. But I was exercising. I was actually like properly exercising for the first time in my life. I got into static trapeze at first, and then I kind of eventually graduated. Like I eventually moved over to handstands because, you could just train them anywhere. You didn't need an aerial rig to do that. And I just, over the course of 5 years, just really found a love for exercise and working out and just being healthier. So coming back to Shields in better condition than when I left it, I was like, fuck, I didn't think about any of that. I was like, I hadn't done screaming really in 5 years and I've not been on stage. We're going to be doing a 45-minute set at Burn It Down. We only did like 30-minute sets beforehand when we were doing Shields. And I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to hold it up, and didn't really practice it much until like maybe a couple of weeks beforehand because I was really kind of worried that I was going to eat shit. I was putting it off because I was like, what if I suck? This will be awful. And It turned out I didn't suck. It turned out being healthy really helps being on stage. So it
Who'd have
felt
thunk
like
it?
yeah, I know. Who the fuck would have thought that? It really worked in my favor. I got back up there. I got back into practices and I felt really good and I could get through the whole set and my voice wasn't suffering. Along with the pressure that we put on ourselves, I had this pressure of like, being this person on stage, like this metal form of myself, like Joe from Shields, who would bang his head and scream in a certain way and have the stage presence kind of thing. And with that came warming up. And I was just like, I diligently warm up before shows, like 45 minutes and be so protective of my voice. And I remember suffering more for it. So now coming back to it and just being more relaxed about my voice and just making sure I've drunk enough water in the day and doing the appropriate warm up, not overdoing that. My voice felt fine by the end of these sets. It felt fine by the end of tour. I was like, okay, I guess I just got to chill.
I guess like tensing up probably just didn't help. Like you just tense up your diaphragm and your muscles all the time. I guess that's probably what didn't help.
Yeah, just like, all this tension and pressure. And I guess not being that happy because this wasn't our jobs yet or kind of thing. Years and years ago didn't help either. I guess it's probably a big part of it is the fact that I enjoy it a lot more now. Than that I'm allowing myself to enjoy it. Like I can get up there and can really vibe with the music and just kind of experience the energy in the room and just kind of act on stage in the way that just feels good in that moment. Not, oh yeah, this is the part where I spin my head like this or when I move around like that. I just, we weren't choreographing. At least I wasn't choreographing myself like that on this last tour and these shows. And it just felt good. And I think it translates better and my voice feels better for it. Yeah, no, I guess I came back and I didn't eat shit, which was great.
Yeah.
Really nice.
That's always good.
Yeah. I was very worried about that.
I guess it's like mentally as well, and like what you kind of said there. But back in before you guys broke up initially, like you said, you put this pressure on yourself. Like I need to do a good show. I need to. If I don't do a good show, we might not get to the next level as a band. Whereas now, because you don't have that pressure of this needs to be our career, you can just have fun with it and like you can be a bit more carefree and yeah, you're just kind of in the moment as opposed to in your head all the time.
Absolutely, just fucking enjoy it. And that's what it should be. That's what it should have always been about. It's just enjoying it. But we were young and we didn't get it. We didn't know how to listen to ourselves and what was good for us back then. We just a lot of people don't when they're that age. We've since grown up a lot but I guess what I'm saying is we've all just become adults since Shields.
Yeah.
we've had to learn more about ourselves to survive as like adult people in the adult world. So coming back, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We're just happier, just better for it.
Well, you kind of touched on it there as well. You've got a new drummer, Marcus. How did that kind of all come about, like bringing him into the fold?
Oh, yeah. So Sam met Marcus because Marcus did YouTube covers of Kubrick songs.
Okay.
And Sam needed a drummer for Kubrick for a tour that he was doing with Bury Tomorrow in mainland Europe. And so just hit him up and they started playing together. And so when Shields came back and Alex decided to not do Shields, Marcus was our first choice because he was really good in Kubrick, is really good in Kubrick, amazing drummer, lovely dude, which just seemed like an obvious choice. So we had a chat with him and he was pretty excited to be part of the band.
Isn't he a session drummer for Throne as well? So he's, he can kind of deliver the kind of stuff that Shields do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Marcus is just a great drummer anyway. And he's been with Throne in America for like a month. I think
right
back now, but he's been out touring with Invent Animate and Throne. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, very awesome. Very lucky to have that guy on board with us.
Bringing in the new era of Shields with guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's good fun.
Speaking of this new era, like what is planned so far for Shields for the rest of this year and next year that you can talk about? I don't know if there's anything that's kind of hush at the moment.
I guess we're just planning things. We're trying to get on some more tours next year. We want to be a bit more active in tours. We really want to get back to mainland Europe. And we'd love, and we are trying to get to further afield as well, where we've got like other bits of fan base. It turns out most of our fans are actually in America, like 60-70% of our fan base is in the United States. So it would be super fucking cool to get over there. We are creating again, and we're doing it as much as we can. So whatever that means in the end run, I can't say yet because I just don't know. But we're also looking to kind of put out a we're looking to put out something next year that will have like, I don't know how to say. Something I can talk about is I Just Feel Hate will definitely be on Spotify at some point.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of stuff we're talking about now and we're like figuring out at the moment is so loose and still like we're putting it together that it's no real point putting any form into that materialization.
Yeah. So I guess the plan is obviously to do stuff, but what that will be exactly, you don't even know yourself yet. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, we plan to release new material. We plan to tour, and hopefully we can make both those things awesome and really accessible to everyone. I'm looking forward to next year. I think it's going to be a busy year for Shields with writing and hopefully playing some more shows.
Well, sounds awesome, man. I really want to see this new era of Shields. Next time you come to Manchester, I'll definitely come to a show. And yeah, thanks a lot for speaking to me and telling me about this new chapter for you guys. Like I say, it's more of a hobby than a career, but who knows where it will go.
Absolutely, man. Well, at this point, until you earn a career's worth of money from it per year, it's always going to be an expensive hobby. But thankfully, we're not just beating ourselves that it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
We're pretty real with the fact we know what it is, and whilst we'd like to make it our careers, it's just going to be fun.
Yeah, that's the important thing, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, any final words? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug? Floor's yours.
Splitting Teeth. Watch that space. Best band in the world. Listen to Nail Bomb every day. No, thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate you talking to me.
Yeah, you too. Take care, dude.
Nice one.
Bye. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast, then please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. If you want to support the podcast further, you can go and give it a follow on social media, pick up something from the merch store, or subscribe to the Patreon to get early access to episodes. All the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.